Am I the a-hole for not being the nicest about my not father having cancer? Plus updates. Original post. I'm Sophie, 22 female, and I have two older half-brothers, 25 and 27. The man who had been raising me as my father, 54 male, found out I was not his biological child, my two older brothers are, when I was 7, and promptly abandoned me and divorced my mom. He was very involved up until this point and was actually in the middle of coaching my soccer team when it happened. He abandoned that too, and the assistant coach had to take over. Anyways, he ended up paying child support to my mom for me, probably because he was the breadwinner. And him leaving my mom left us two in pretty dire financial circumstances. I was also yanked out of the private school my brothers and I attended. He remarried a few years later to a woman with a daughter a year younger than me and promptly did everything with her that he used to do with me. Hurrah for them! Sophomore year of high school, some organization was hosting a father-daughter dance in our school gym while I was around campus with some friends, can't remember, and we vandalized the fancy car he pulled up in. Not something I'm proud of, but I'm mentioning it here because although I paid for half the cost of repairs, he graciously paid the other half and decided not to press charges. Anyways, now the old man has cancer. Both brothers and stepdaughter are out of state with the school, and his wife has early arthritis or something, not really sure. He calls my mom and asks her if either of us could drive him to and from chemotherapy. We were in the car and he was on speaker. So I told him no, that's something family does, and has made it very clear he doesn't see either of us as family, and hung up. Mom is doing things like bringing casseroles and driving him. I don't try to stop her, but I don't help her either. But she has recently started to try and guilt me into it, saying he always paid child support. To which I said the amount of money he lost on that was about as impactful as a fart in the wind for all money bags. He did press charges about his car, to which I said, great, he did one nice thing for me, so he can get one casserole or one car ride. Now my siblings and his stepdaughter have all flown in, and my brother says he, not dad, really needs to speak to me. I had to tell him that if he has something to say to me, I don't want to hear it, and if he writes me a letter, I'm not opening it. I said I was sorry for what they were going through, but that has made it very clear I'm not his family, and so I don't want them asking me for things they would ask of family. However, they're struggling, and the more they ask for help, the more my patience wears thin, and the more insensitive my rejections get. My mother recently talked with me about being the bigger person. Am I the a-hole? Also, please don't leave comments like, the real a-hole is your mom for cheating and committing paternity fraud. Like, thanks for that one, Sherlock. And my mother and I have reconciled. Edit, my mom is pushing me to be the bigger person because our pastor says it will have a healing effect on my soul. She's very religious. The situation is more complicated than not dad being an innocent angel victim and my mom deciding to do paternity fraud for funsies. I might do a separate post or something to explain since this is anonymous anyway. While her circumstances don't excuse or justify her actions which were still wrong, having the full context made me more amenable to forgiveness. Edit/update. I have agreed to speak to him and will do so sometime this weekend. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not a-hole. The man who had raised you as his own daughter for 7 years suddenly dumped you. It was not your fault that your mother had cheated. You loved him as your father, and he ripped away your security, your family, your lifestyle, and I'm sure a good chunk of your heart. That is not something that is easily forgiven. Maybe your mother is helping him because she still has some sort of sense of guilt, but that is not your guilt to carry. That man did you very wrong, and I wouldn't shed a tear when he died if I were you. I am sorry your brothers are suffering. It's understandable. They are worried about their father. But he has not been a father to you for 15 years, by his own choice. How much is one child supposed to take? Not only did he withdraw his love and affection, but then he made you watch as he showered that attention on another little girl who was also not his child. He seems to have no problem loving her. The hurt and trauma he has caused you is not easily gotten over. It sucks that your mom is so quick to overlook the damage that was done to you in order to try to rehabilitate herself. It's not about being the bigger person. The injustices he did to you were inflicted on a child. He had the opportunity to do right by you and chose not to. Your mom's infidelity was not your fault. The relationship you had established with him for 7 years meant nothing to him, and now he means nothing to you. And that's okay. Couldn't have put it better myself. Not a-hole. I can definitely understand why the not father would have been hurt and angry all those years ago, but he was the adult in the situation. He took out his feelings on an innocent child who loved him as a father, which is an action that's within his rights, I guess, but the current fallout is well within the expected consequences. As for the good points, well, child support is his legal obligation. And about the car vandalism, he'd have been a major a-hole if he had actually pressed charges then. Lol. OP owes him nothing. Not the a-hole. He burnt that bridge. As well as he should have. Can you imagine if someone posted in AITA, "My wife of years hid that our 7-year-old daughter isn't mine. Am I the a-hole if I leave?" 90% of the responses would be, "Not a-hole. Get out of there. She's betrayed you and you'll never trust her again. It would be harming the daughter to stay around when you don't love her, etc." But once the bridge is burnt like you said, you can't expect help from those same people years later. Not a-hole. Not a-hole. My mother recently talked with me about being the bigger person. You are already the bigger person by choosing to forgive your mother. The way you were acting is vengeful toward your not father, but not in any way out of line. From what we know, you haven't gone out of your way to do anything harmful or manipulative. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find someone calling you an a-hole. Definitely not a-hole. I hate that term, be the bigger person. It's always the wronged one that has to be the bigger person. As an adult to a child, he had a chance to be the bigger person. Pastor can get his church members to be the bigger person, but don't feel guilty and don't be roped in, OP. Now for the first update. Sorry for the long wait for the update. To be honest, I completely forgot I made this post in the first place. Well, he's dead. Family fessed up to all the requests for help, basically being plots to get me and him in the same room. He was in hospice care, which I mixed up with being in the hospital in my original post. He started out by basically wanting a bunch of life updates from me. Basic things like what college did I go to, what was my major, where was I working now, did I have a boyfriend, etc. He asked me if I still played soccer, and I said no, not since he left me. He looked sad and said I was really good, and I agreed. I had humored him with casual talk for about 10 minutes, but I made it clear that I wanted answers, and for the visit to be on my terms. So this was the segue into the deep stuff. I told him I had questions for him, and he agreed to answer them. 1. Did you miss me? He looked kind of offended by that, which I thought was very audacious, and said, "Of course I did." And I snapped back, "Could have freaking fooled me." And there was this awkward moment of silence, but I decided to keep going. 2. Why did he leave me? He talked about how he was betrayed by my mom, and looking at me was a reminder that he had been tricked into raising another man's child, and then I got upset. I told him, to me, I was his daughter. Maybe not on a DNA test, but here, pointing at my heart. He just got quiet and said, "You're not mine, Sophie." 3. Why wasn't I, as a person, more important than the results of the paternity test? Was I an easy child to abandon? He looked kind of shocked by this one too, but I wanted to know. He goes, "No, of course not. It has nothing to do with you." But I snapped at him to tell me the truth, that I deserve that much. And he said very bluntly, "2 kids are less stressful than 3, Sophie. So yeah, sometimes I was relieved you weren't around. Especially as a single parent, okay? But there's nothing you could have done to change or overcome the fact that you're not my child. You're the one I got tricked into raising. You weren't mine, and you still aren't. I'm sorry, Sophie." This is where the list was forgotten. And I just said, "But you treated your stepdaughter like yours, no problem." And he said it was different. I quietly asked if she was a replacement for me, and he said he wasn't going to dignify that with a response. I asked if he wasn't going to apologize. Why did he ask me here? He just said he wanted me to know I was in his will. I said, okay, I don't forgive you. He looked kind of shocked and said, what? And I just repeated, I don't forgive you. He said okay and looked really sad and added that he will pay my student loans via the will. I told him the conclusion I had come to, that forgiveness was the kind thing to do, and I wish I could have given it to him, but there was just too much hurt. He said he understood and I left. If he put you in his will, I think he does care for you, and in a way admits you are part of his life, as in you're his daughter. But he doesn't want to admit it because he was tricked. As for that stepdaughter, again he married his new wife knowing she had a daughter, not tricked or anything. I'm not saying what he did was correct or anything. He is messed up. In a way, he wanted to save face. I'm not condoning what he did. I'm also a female, but just looking at his deathbed situation in an unbiased standpoint. He abandoned a 7-year-old child that he had raised into infancy and loved because of DNA. Divorce her mom for cheating? Of course. Completely turn his back on her and expect forgiveness at the end of his life? Nah. Like I said, I am not condoning what he did. He did this to her. She's innocent and a victim, out of spite, due to her mom cheating. I'm stating a reason why he put her in his will. He wanted to save his face from embarrassment, but have love for her, but can't love her due to his ego. It's hard to explain. In the end, it's all because of how he treated a mom. This led to his downfall. Oh, honey, I really wish I could give you a hug. I'm estranged from my birth father and mother, raised in foster care, and after I was 24 to 25-ish, they separately both tried to reach out to me. I wrote them both letters that stated they threw me away like trash, and so are no longer my parents. I'm now 35 and still haven't talked to them. One left for drugs and his new fam and then jail multiple times, and my mom left us for chomo. Honestly, you may feel sad now, but your mom sounds like a G. She may have made mistakes like we all do, but at least she tried to fix them and always seemed to have your best interest at heart. I shared a bit of my life with you, so you know that while it may still hurt, your true family are those who do not toss you out like trash. You did not owe him anything, and even though you were not nice in the last conversation with him, it was still a lot more than he deserved. I also have a 16-year-old stepdaughter whom I treat exactly like my own kids. Blood does not make family. I hope you got closure and you find your peace. Second update. A lot of context and info had to be cut out to fit the character limits on the forum, so I thought I would answer them. My mom is most frequently asked about, and I understand why people are the most curious about her. I will try to answer everything as best I can. Questions about my mom. Why did you forgive her, or why are you mad that you're not dad and not her? This is going to be a very long answer, so buckle up. The first part is that I, as a 7-year-old, hadn't been given the talk yet, and simply didn't have the capacity to understand what was going on. I just knew that mom was kissing someone else, and so she and dad were breaking up, but didn't grasp why or how that meant he wasn't my dad anymore. So, as many of you in the comments suggested, for a while, it was just me clinging to the only parent and stability I had. Dad left, mom didn't. It was simple. Middle school was when I started to process things, and crap really hit the fan. I hated my mom for a period there, and I mean hated her. I accused her of ruining my life, told her I hated her, and a lot of other nasty things that I really regret. Our relationship was really rocky and strained, but we love each other a lot. And I'm just going to paste one of my earlier comments here because I think it summarizes things pretty well. I mean, it's easier because she has A, fully owned up to her actions, B, explicitly apologized and asked for forgiveness without expecting it as her due, and C, worked her butt off for the last 15 years to try and make up for some of the fallout. It's way easier to forgive someone who shows you through their actions how sorry they are. She taught me how to drive. She spent hours watching YouTube videos so she could help me with algebra homework. When I was drunk, alone, and scared at my first high school party, she was the one I called, and who picked me up no questions asked. My life with her wasn't easy, but I wouldn't trade her for any of my friends' parents. Who would you find easier to forgive? Someone who did you the biggest wrong but had a genuine regret and tried to make reparations? Or someone who hurt you slightly less and never reached out once? Also, I read a Scarlet Letter in high school and it made me reflect on my mother. And at a certain point, I was just like, how much penitence is enough? Does she just deserve to be miserable for the rest of her life? When will it be enough? I know that for some people, there's no amount of suffering she could go through that would make you forgive her or have a favorable opinion about her, and that's okay. She's my mom, not yours. Also, she's generally a nice person and much easier to be around than not dad. What were the extenuating circumstances you alluded to? This also factored a lot in my decision to mend our relationship and sympathize with her. When my dad had my oldest brother Andrew, he was 27 and my mom was 20. Their timeline is, met her when she was 17, started dating at 18, dated through freshman year of college. He pressured her to drop out of school the whole way through, and she finally drops and marries him halfway through sophomore year at age 20. Gives birth right before her 21st birthday. Not dad isolated her from friends, has her doing all the housework and childcare. And I mean like all of it. When I said he was involved as a dad, I should have clarified in the fun stuff. As a kid, you can't really tell the difference between a fun parent and a good parent. She has also confessed she suffered from PPD and never totally lost the weight from her pregnancies, which not dad liked to joke about publicly and berate her for privately. Yes, he paid for everything, but that was about it. And yes, I understand. Explanation but not excuse. But the portrait some of you are painting is, she was a greedy, freeloading hoe who deceived her perfect, loving provider husband and committed paternity fraud because she was evil and it was fun. The truth is that she was miserable and tried to remedy that by being with my bio father, which I understand is still not okay, and then was terrified to leave or even fess up. Because he had all the money and she wanted a good life for me, even if she had to lie to get me there. She says she was on the verge of confessing and called her mother, my grandma, to ask if she and I could potentially stay with her, and grandma was drunk when she picked up the phone. Grandma herself and her relationship with my mother is a whole different can of worms. Grandma was a violent alcoholic who lost and regained custody of my mom a lot, which led to her being assaulted by her foster father from ages 12 to 13, and there was a lot of resentment and hurt between them. But my mom said basically that grandma was her last resort, and when she heard her slurring her words over the phone, she lost all courage and decided to stick it through to the bitter end with my not dad. The thing that got me was when people kept saying, imagine if the person you loved betrayed you like this. Put yourself in the father's shoes. And the thing is, I don't think he loved her. I don't even think he really liked her. The truth about my mom is that she was a very hurt person who desperately wanted some affection and comfort. And my bio dad gave it to her when her husband wouldn't. Yes, it was wrong obviously, but my heart goes out to her in those circumstances. When she was my age, she had a toddler and a newborn, and was essentially a single mom, and I couldn't imagine being in her shoes. Her childhood gave her this almost desperate attachment pattern. Her foster situations never lasted longer than a few years, and around the time I was conceived, her marriage had lasted longer than any living situation she had ever had. And she confessed she felt this need to sabotage it, run from it, or change it, because change is all she knew. Once again, this is not an excuse. Just me explaining there was more going on in her psyche than, let me do this for a laugh. Obviously, I condemn her actions, but I get it. I feel for her. She's my mom.